Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon and Distillery News Podcast, your commercial-free, and therefore money-free, bourbon podcast for Monday, August 25th. I am Ed from BourbonObsessed.com, also known on Instagram as Bourbon_Obsessed. I publish bi-weekly newsletters featuring the latest bourbon news and releases, and also do this podcast version for your listening pleasure. My usual co-host, my friend and bourbon aficionado, Dean Langdon, will again be joining me to discuss the latest bourbon and distillery news. Dean, how are you doing?
Doing wonderfully today, Ed. Glad to be back. And boy, this is like 3 or 4 in a row, so I'm getting quite the string here.
I know.
I'm afraid Karen's going to feel, unwanted and unloved. But
well, you are abandoning me later in September, and then
there's that. Yeah. She'll have her chance. Never fear. So
she will.
Yeah. It's been a fun week. Didn't do a lot of bourbon things this week. I know from your Instagram feed you had at least a Claremont dinner, which looked like a lot of fun with the whole both no's. It was cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I went to a dinner at Beam at the Kitchen Table restaurant there on Thursday. It was one of their Claremont supper clubs, which they have every month, generally on Thursdays. I think it's the third Thursday, and they usually center around a different bourbon. And this particular one centered around the new Baker's 13, the 2025 release, which will now be the third of the yearly releases, although it was released in single barrels. Well, it's a single barrel anyway, but it was released as very limited single barrels before that. And also the high rye Bakers. So it was a fantastic dinner, and it's on my Instagram feed for anybody that wants to look.
I looked at the not only the bourbon but the dishes on your Instagram.
Yeah, the
feed,
food was incredible.
Lovely. Yeah, it looked really good.
No, it really was. It was outstanding, and all the cocktails were outstanding. And there's pictures and details of them all on my Instagram feed, so I won't bore you with them now. But I mean, in general, I'm more of like we've talked about this before, a one cocktail person, and I don't like things to be too sweet or anything. Right. But really, all their cocktails were perfect. I mean, it was really a cocktail menu sort of almost made for me because it was focusing on just riffs on the classic cocktails. Yeah. So it wasn't anything too crazy. But they were all great with all the courses and the welcome cocktail. Really enjoyed it, and the food was just phenomenal. So
that's great. I like really the kitchen up there. I mean, I've always been happy with what I have there, just a regular menu, and Beam does it right. Obviously because they're selling more whiskey than just about anybody these days. Yeah,
no, but it's good, and obviously you get to talk to everybody there, and Fred and Freddie are always there, and Baker was at this one, so. Yeah, great. It was a fantastic event.
They're open to the public, right? I mean, it's just, you got to get your tickets. I'm sure they sell out, but...
Yeah, well, I think the next one is coming up sooner than usual because there may be 2 in September. I'm not positive, but they always have one the week of Kentucky Bourbon Fest, so it's the same time as Bourbon in the Air, which is part of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, but since that only has limited tickets, there's plenty of people that are looking for other things to do. So I don't know what the focus of that one is, but it's usually something pretty special. If I had to guess, I would guess that it's going to be the Booker's Reserve and the Little Book Infinity, because they're both due to come out, and I think those were what was at the dinner last year. So it's probably going to be another really good one.
Go get your tickets, folks. You can get in for that one. It's
Well, that one could be sold out too by now. Bourbon Week, right? The Bourbon Festival Week brings a lot of people to town. Needless to say.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. 85% from out of state. I remember that from not too long ago. So
if you don't have a hotel yet,
bring your tent.
Well, those are probably all taken.
I'm thinking camping by the side of the road. At this point,
I'm sure they frown on that.
So what's in the news this week? I know they do.
Well, we've got the big story, which I guess we'll start with, and it's been updated a little even since my newsletter, which is where this little blurb comes from, but Dean's going to fill us in. So it's about Uncle Nearest, and we've talked about it, and I think everybody's heard about it somewhat by now, even if you hadn't heard us talk about it. So we reported it in the last Bourbon and Distillery newsletter. Oh, so I guess 2 weeks ago already. But a lot has happened since, a real lot. It's one of the fastest moving legal cases in history, I think. To recap, Uncle Nearest and its Nearest Green Distillery are facing a $100 million lawsuit filed by primary lender Farm Credit Mid-America on July 28, 2025 in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Tennessee. The lender alleges default on multiple loans totaling over $108 million, including claims of inaccurate barrel inventory reports, confident breaches, and undisclosed asset transfers. The plaintiff filed an emergency motion for the immediate appointment of a receiver. Since that time, Uncle Nearest has responded, in part stating that their former chief financial officer had overstated their barrel inventory by $21 million and filed a request to compel mediation. Ultimately, the court has denied the request for mediation and granted the plaintiff's request for placing Uncle Nearest in receivership. And at that point, the receiver was yet to be named, but the receiver has since been named. Suffice it to say, this is a rapidly developing story with many, many details and moving parts. And we'll hear a little from Dean, as we'll remind you, he is a bankruptcy attorney, so he has...
I have a little insight into this. I mean, I haven't worked with the receiver in this case, but I'm going to start with the mediation, and because people are going, why wouldn't you do that? Mediation is a sort of informal attempt for the parties to get together with a third party who doesn't have a stake in it and try and work something out. It's got to be voluntary on both sides, and I think the judge felt pretty strongly that if Farm Credit didn't want to mediate, forcing it doesn't work. You can't force a result in a mediation. So, and they had just gone through a hearing to appoint a receiver, and he had said, I'm going to grant one. I'm just going to figure out who it is. So both the bank and the Weavers, Uncle Nearest, proposed receivers. The bank proposed a gentleman named Kevin Larkin, he's actually serving as the chief restructuring officer for Stoli in its bankruptcy. So he has some experience there.
Which is ongoing.
It's ongoing, right?
Can you be more than a receiver for more than one
you
thing?
You can. I mean, you're going to have your hands full.
Yeah, I mean, they're both
so
big deals.
He's with a company called Riveron, and apparently he's been advising Farm Credit even before this case was filed. That's a little too close to comfort, I think. Perhaps, I don't know what was in the judge's head, obviously. But for the appearance of fairness, if nothing else, if you're going to appoint the person who's already been working with the bank a lot, that looks funny, even if it's all above board, okay? The bank actually suggested somebody else, a Jeremiah Foster, and he is Kentucky Owl's collateral manager. So he's handling all of Kentucky Owl's barrel stock, apparently. But he's out of Arizona. And I think Mr. Larkin is in Michigan, I believe. So, and the reason that Uncle Nearest suggested Philip Young, I'm going to read from what they filed to support this, is he lives in Columbia, Tennessee, within an hour's drive of defendant's headquarters and minutes from the defendant's distillery processing partner, Tennessee Distilling Group, in Columbia. A local receiver eliminates travel expenses, allows for spontaneous site visits, and affords ready access to local suppliers, vendors, management, employees, and regulators. Young's deep roots in the region further ensure he maintains a strong pulse on the local business climate. You know, basically, he's there. He's going to be more responsive, and he has the experience to do what's needed here, which is to run this business. And I mean, that's what the receiver is going to do. Sometimes they run it just to try and figure out, how do I sell this? Sometimes they run it to try and actually reinvigorate it. The receiver isn't working for the bank. The receiver isn't working for the Weavers or for Uncle Nearest. The receiver actually works for the court. And so that's who his loyalties, if you will, are to. And that's who he would report to.
But what does the court want out of this? Do they want the receiver to turn the company into an effective business that's making a profit and has no debts, or do they want to see the plaintiff get paid off?
That's a great question, and the court doesn't necessarily have a preference that way or the other. I mean, this was initiated by Farm Credit to recover their money, right? And so ultimately that's the goal. But instead of, I mean, Farm Credit has one idea about how that should happen. Uncle Nearest has a different idea about how that should happen. The receiver is sort of this middleman who's going to look at, if you will, both sides or all sides objectively and say, I think we can do this or that, and has the authority to do it. The Uncle Nearest said, I thought this was really interesting, Young understands that flooding the market with thousands of barrels in a softening bourbon economy through a fire sale process would guarantee steep discounts and jeopardize brand equity.
So clear the shelves will not work. It wouldn't work anyway, right?
wouldn't
Because
work.
that's all whiskey that's already been sold. So they're not
That's
getting
right.
a penny
Yeah.
from.
And people-
all they're getting is the reordering. So
Right.
if people don't reorder,
Yeah.
it doesn't give any more money into their cash flow.
I mean, buying what's already on the shelves is not helping. I mean, it helps Uncle Nearest, you're right, by reordering, but
Yeah.
but it doesn't.
But now we're talking months
they've
down
been
the
paid.
line, right? So.
Right. So the other thing that they mentioned in this request to appoint Philip Young, the receiver, was the changes they had made. And I don't know that this has come out anywhere, but they've added an independent director to the board. They're undergoing an audit. They found a long-term chief financial officer with 20 years of experience in the spirit sector, more financial controls, more planning. They say the gross margin increased from 55% to 68%, and earnings before interest, taxes, etc., grew from 17.7% to 39% over the course of a year. So, I mean, if those kinds of changes were already in the works, that's good news because it's going to put it back on better financial footing. It's not necessarily going to pay back farm credit.
Well, not to be a cynic, though. I mean, is that all more self-reported information? I mean, has that
Well,
been verified by
that's-
an outside source?
No, exactly.
So that's the
It has
thing.
not.
I mean, isn't that
So-
the root of a lot of this in the first
It
place?
is. It is. It's the lack of transparency, and if nothing else, the receiver will bring some transparency to this. He's got authority under the receivership order to do anything management could do, or hasn't done, as the case might be. So, and you know, I forget his name, but he does the Bourbon and Rye blog. He's sort of gone through this order paragraph by paragraph.
Yeah, the
And
Bourbon and Rye Club. If you want to read everything this in detail, go to
Yes.
his website, thebourbonandryeclub.com. Mikey has done an
he's done
amazing deep
yes,
dive into
yeah.
this
And-
that
and-
he's updating daily.
and he puts it in non-lawyer terms, which I'm not always good at. So,
You're a lawyer.
yeah, right, exactly. So, you know, I mean, I've looked at that, and I appreciate the way he's broken it down. But basically, the receiver can do anything he needs to operate this business. He can decide to shut it down tomorrow. He can decide to ramp up production. I mean, he's got pretty much total discretion. He is supposed to communicate with the weavers and with Farm Credit, of course, about what he is doing, and I'm sure he will. I mean, receivers don't operate in a vacuum. You know, the Uncle Nearest said that he intended to continue to try and engage in mediation with the people, and he can certainly do that too. I mean, you know, again, you can't force somebody to do that. Uncle Nearest raised something in their papers about the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, the TTB, said that appointing a receiver was a change in control, and that if there wasn't the proper paperwork filled out in 30 days, their licenses would lapse. And they paint that as a doomsday scenario, saying that, you know, those permits will expire and all product will have to be quickly sold or destroyed. I don't know if that's true or not. I didn't go dig
Well,
into that.
we've seen it happen. It's happened to Garrett County. Did it happen to? I mean, there's a precedent for this,
There's a precedent
obviously.
for that,
So
but
I'm
I
sure
don't-
that companies don't immediately go into major problems with their. It seems like they would reissue that.
I would think so. Yeah, and they pointed out that
Not
Mr.
that I
Young
have
was
any experience
Mr.
with
Young
this.
was willing to point out he was willing to do whatever was needed to keep that in place. Okay, and so I think that was another factor, maybe why the judge selected him.
Well, it sort of has to, right? Because aren't they supposed to be continuing to run the company?
Yes, they are.
So
Right,
if you
and-
let your
unlike
permits expire,
unlike Garrett
you
County,
can't run your company.
you know, they're not running the company, right? Garrett County's
Yeah.
not doing that. Luca Mariano, that actually filed a bankruptcy, they're still in control of that business because they're in
Right.
bankruptcy instead of having a receiver. So all these different flavors of what happens to distressed businesses we're seeing now in the bourbon industry, and there's a multitude of ways you can handle it. A receiver's not necessarily the worst way if the lender has lost faith in the owners of Uncle Nearest. That much seems clear, right?
Right.
I don't think anybody would dispute that. So you put somebody in there who doesn't really have a stake in it other than to right the ship, and hopefully both the owners of the company and the lender have faith in that person to get the best result. And if everybody sort of rows the boat in the same direction, hey, sometimes you get a better result that way instead of fighting over things. So time will tell on this one.
Right. No, it's and we probably should move on, but I just have one more
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
So why would Uncle Nearest not have gone the bankruptcy route, and that way they would have maintained control of their own company?
That's a good question, because they certainly had time to do that. Once Farm Credit filed its lawsuit, they could have
It's too
chosen
late.
to file. No, I mean, what's this order? The receiver order gives Mr. Young, the receiver, the ability to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I'm actually involved in a case right now where the receiver order says any attempt to file a bankruptcy by the company will be a violation of this order and get you in trouble. Okay.
Well, you would think that they wouldn't want that to. They wouldn't want you to file a bankruptcy because
Well,
then.
Because then you take control back. Right. That's exactly right. And so the receiver order in Uncle Nearest doesn't say that Uncle Nearest can't file bankruptcy. It doesn't preclude that. It just says the receiver has the authority to. So if Philip Young looks at this and says, there's some things we can do in bankruptcy we can't do in this receivership, I think we ought to file. He's got the power to do that.
And who's in charge then? Does it go back to
that's going
the
to be
Weavers?
up to the. So I've had a case where there was a receivership appointed. This was for a hemp processing plant back when that was the big thing, right? Once they legalized hemp here in Kentucky, a receiver was appointed. Our client, the owners of that company, wanted to file a bankruptcy. We filed, but then we asked the receiver to turn over all the assets, and there was a hearing. There was evidence about bad things happening when our clients were running it. And the bankruptcy court decided, nope, I'm not going to make the receiver turn this over, and I'm going to dismiss this bankruptcy. And so there's a lot of flexibility out there. Every case is different depending on what kind of, did somebody make a mere mistake, or was somebody sort of evil? And how does the judge interpret it? So I don't know why they didn't choose to file bankruptcy. There's some, you can ask to have a trustee appointed in bankruptcy, which acts sort of like a receiver, so they could still lose control. And a bankruptcy is usually 3 or 4 times more expensive than a receiver. So that's another reason people don't use it as much.
Huh. All right.
All right, so I've gone on long enough.
Well, no, I mean, I think this is interesting. We could obviously make an entire show of it, but we can't because we have a lot more things
We do.
to get through. But anyway, thanks for analyzing that for us, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it again.
We will. There's all sorts of twists and turns. I'm sure it'll be interesting as it goes along. The receiver's got to file a report by October 1st.
Right, and that's when, at least some information. Well, will we get to know that, or is that going to be?
It'll be filed with the court.
That's public?
So that'll become public knowledge. Right. There's so many behind the scenes going on, some negotiations and stuff in these situations that we'll never know about, and unless somebody posts about it on social media, and I don't know who that would be.
Well, stay tuned, folks. All right, so moving on. So following its acquisition of Old Elk Distillery earlier this year, Middle West Spirits has appointed former Old Elk CEO Luis Gonzalez as its new Chief Commercial Officer. Gonzalez will oversee commercial strategy, marketing, and operations while leading the expansion of Middle West's growing contract distillation business into international markets. Gonzalez served as CEO of Old Elk Distillery for over 7 years, transforming it from a niche craft operation into or is it niche?
I like niche,
right.
but
I'm not that cultured.
I've been wrong a lot, so I don't know.
a niche craft operation into a highly awarded, nationally recognized whiskey brand available in all 50 states. Under his leadership, Old Elk became known for its innovation, commitment to quality, and operational excellence. Middle West Spirits is now the largest distillery in Ohio and ranks among the top 10 grain-to-glass producers in the U.S. So that's interesting because I've found this all surprising in the first place, and I was wondering how they were going to consolidate these two companies.
Yeah, this is one of the first steps in that, which it seems like a logical, practical step, and why would you want to lose all the experience that Mr. Gonzalez has, and trying to expand internationally in this market is a bold step, I think. I mean,
for their contract distilling part, that's what I thought was really surprising. I could Well, I still always think it's best to cater to your own backyard, and they now have two backyards. They have the Rocky Mountains and they have the Ohio area. I still feel that's the best thing in this market, but
yeah, I mean, I never would have guessed they were the largest distillery or distiller in Ohio, but I can think of some others, but I guess it doesn't surprise me a lot in hindsight. But you know, who is their market going to be? I mean, it's pretty clear we're in a softening market and trying to grow. I've seen companies grow too fast. I've seen companies try to grow when the market's falling apart, and a lot of times that may not end well. So I hope they're being careful about capital expenditures and just how much they're doing to try and grow this when the market's not at its strongest.
Well, yeah, well, I'm just very intrigued by the international contract distillation. I mean, what exactly does that mean? So they're going to, is that for foreign companies that want to contract distill here and then sell here to maybe avoid the tariff situation, in which case then that would be very relevant and actually a very interesting way to combat the tariffs? Or is that for stuff that's going to be distilled here and exported, or they're going to set up something in another country? I was very surprised when I read that, and I wish I suppose we could try to talk to somebody there, but from the press release, it doesn't really expand on what that means.
It didn't go into any detail about that.
It just raised a whole bunch of questions for me.
I get it. Yeah. So stay tuned. We'll find out more, and they'll make another announcement, I suspect, at some point. Over.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we're going to start hearing more and more about how they're. So now we're learning, though. I guess the bottom line is these companies are basically assimilating. It's not like they just like sucked Old Elk in. It's gonna. Right. They're going to be, I mean, sort of like the Luxro MGP relationship.
I think that's a good parallel. So, I mean, is it clear to you what Greg Metzke is doing at this point? Is he still serving like his master? He's not really a distiller, right? He was more of a blender for Old Elk, is my thought.
But he distilled it at Seagram's or whatever
at MGP
version it was at the time.
Yeah.
Which I don't think, was it MGP at that point?
I don't know if it was or not. Yeah.
But what was formerly MGP.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't Seagram's. It was after Seagram's.
That distillery in Indiana. Everybody knows what we're talking about. So, but I mean, I don't know. Do you know if he's still on board?
They don't talk about him much. I mean, I don't know. But I think he lives in this area, though. So moving this home base here, I think, is actually closer to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, they say more news, because I did comment to the PR people, and they said more news would be coming. So right. we're gonna hear what happens.
You'll hear it here first.
Hopefully.
If you're listening to the podcast, stop. Just listen to this one. That will guarantee you hear it here first. Okay.
And don't look at the newspapers either.
What are those?
I don't know. All right, moving on. So Pursuit Spirits has opened a new 7,600 square foot visitor center and cocktail lounge on Louisville's Whiskey Row. The two-story space includes retail for whiskey and branded merchandise, multiple experiences, a podcast studio, and a basement cocktail bar called Trial and Error. The experiences offered go beyond traditional tastings, offering guests the chance to explore bourbon history, participate in cocktail creation, and engage directly with the brand's founders. And there's the marquee experience, which they've been offering at their current place, called the Whole Shebang, where guests can taste through multiple expressions, take part in their own personal private barrel selection process, and then fill their own Pursuit United bottle and more. And I have to say, we forgot to discuss this last week's episode, but it is one of the things that I did go to the prior week, and they have really done a nice job with this place. It's beautiful. and the cocktail bar is really nice. It's got all these little nooks and crannies in it. It's got just a wide selection of craft cocktails, and it's got, I think, every one of their Pursuit series going back to the beginning of time with their first releases. And the upstairs is cool too. It's got the separate rooms for the different experiences. It's got the podcast studio. Very, very well done.
I mean, really. I think Ryan and Kenny have been very thoughtful about this. They didn't just jump into it. And that's evident by when they're opening, again, opening into a soft market, but that it gives them the tourism angle. Okay, so if sales
Yeah.
might be declining, then they're getting some revenue from the tourism aspect of it, which I think is going to be critical for them going forward, for any company going forward. And I'm looking forward to getting up there. I want to visit that place. I mean, I
It's
love
really
Whiskey
nice.
Row, and so
You'll like it.
yeah, yeah,
And it's very conveniently located between Green River and Bardstown Bourbon Company's places on
right.
Whiskey Row. So you could spend the day there.
It'd be really easy to spend
With a designated driver.
That's right. Well, just that 1 or 2 blocks of West Main Street. Just get a room at 21C, folks. That way you can just stumble there, and you're all good. So, so yeah, congrats to them on that, and looking forward to seeing them at the Bourbon Festival in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it is the reason that I selected the bottle that we're drinking. So this just happens to be the Bourbon Pursuit Bardstown Bourbon Company collaboration, which I can never keep track of time. It's at least a year that it came out, but it's we won't talk about it in detail because you can't actually buy it, I don't think. But it's very good.
It is. It's very nice. Now it's been in the glass for 15 minutes now. It was getting on me because I tried it before the 15 minutes was up, but it's gone only
You're already
better
on your
since-
third pour.
I wouldn't be enunciating if I was on the third floor. So
Alrighty, so moving on. Anyway, if you find this, they probably still have it to pour at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
well, I would
assume.
hope they have it at Pursuit Spirits, right?
I don't know if they do.
They should, but anyway, yeah. If you get a chance, give it a shot. It's very tasty.
And if it is still available, it's very good. Mm-hmm. All right, so next is Buffalo Trace Distillery has announced the upcoming opening of the John G. Carlisle Cafe, a new 4,900 square foot dining venue located on the first floor of the Elmer T. Lee Clubhouse. Scheduled to open in spring 2026, the cafe will offer lunch service with made-to-order sandwiches, salads, soups, and a limited cocktail menu featuring Buffalo Trace spirits. The cafe enhances the visitor experience by providing a comfortable dining space before or after tours and celebrates the legacy of John G. Carlisle, a key figure in bourbon history who played a crucial role in the passage of the Bottled in Bond Act of 1897.
Indeed, he
We
did.
just can't get away from the law today.
We can't. No, it's everywhere. It permeates everything.
It does. It's job security.
Yes. So it's there's a wonderful restaurant adjacent to Buffalo Trace called Limewater that I had dinner at Friday night, and I think it survives in large part because there really isn't any place to eat at Buffalo Trace, and so I wonder about the impact of that.
Well, there's that little barbecue thing or whatever it is that seems to intermittently be open.
Yeah,
And I don't even know if it is anymore.
yeah, I don't either. And so, but the other thing that struck me is what took Buffalo Trace so long to do this. I mean, you look at Maker's Mark, Heaven Hill, Beam. They all have had restaurants now for a while.
Well, and cocktail bars. I mean, I think
Yeah.
they're the only one. Are they the only one of the big distilleries that, or even the smaller distilleries that doesn't?
Right. I mean, there's a lot of mid-level
serve
players
cocktails.
that have this, right? I mean,
It's
New
actually
Riff,
it is surprising. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's still 6 months away. So
But I mean, they're different than everybody else anyway because their tours are free, so
True.
their tastings are free.
yeah,
I mean, it's a very everything they do is
it's different
It's
from
different.
everybody else, right?
They're not part of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, the KDA.
Nobody else does a BTAC, right? So yeah,
So, I mean,
they're unique.
it's not surprising that they are doing things differently. But yes, it certainly seems like about time that they open a restaurant, and then maybe a cocktail bar will follow, or maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. Who knows? Right? Yeah. So.
Because you'd think they'd be building it now.
You would think they'd put those in together, right? But yeah, so good for them. I mean, I think it's a positive development. Keeps folks on the campus, and if you get a tasting and then you have something to eat, you might spend more in the gift shop. You never know.
Give them the opportunity to put out some more bottles for the afternoon.
Yeah, there you go. On to a different state.
Yes. So let's go to Texas. So Garrison Brothers Distillery has announced the return of High Fashioned Takeover, a month-long celebration of the old-fashioned cocktail beginning September 1st, with hundreds of restaurants and bars participating nationwide, which is why I included if it was only Texas. Not that I got anything about Texas, but try to keep it as relevant as possible to everybody else. The initiative raises funds for Boot Campaign, a nonprofit supporting veterans and military families. At-home participants can order a cocktail kit that includes Garrison Brothers bourbon, ingredients, rocks glasses, and more. In addition, $25 from each kit purchased goes to Boot Campaign. Fans can also post their old fashions to Instagram stories, and for each, Garrison Brothers will make a $5 donation to Boot campaign, and posters will receive an entry into a major prize giveaway. Learn more at the website for this, which is highfashion.com.
It looks like a nice campaign to support a good cause. That's one of the reasons I think we put these in here. In addition to the fact that you can participate in this from wherever, via Instagram, things like that. You get your remote tasting kit. I think that's an interesting marketing tactic.
Yeah.
And they're potentially going to put out a bunch of money to Boot campaign from all of this. So as I want to do, I looked up Boot campaign. They seem to be a very thoughtful and well curated nonprofit providing veteran services, everything from Christmas gifts, holiday gifts for families that can't afford it, to dealing with impacts on a family when somebody gets deployed overseas, to helping folks with their mental health. I mean, they offer like care management services and things like that. So good choice by Garrison Brothers for a cause to support. Looks like it's money well spent.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, that is what we report on this, because it's national and because it supports a charity.
Yeah.
That's good. Alrighty, let's move on to our next story.
Let's do.
So, the University of Kentucky's Estate Whiskey Alliance, the EWA, has named the first recipients of its research grant program, which focuses on agriculture, manufacturing, and terroir in estate whiskey production. The Estate Whiskey Alliance Group, established by the University of Kentucky in 2023, is dedicated to discovering, advancing, and promoting the virtues of estate-produced whiskey, according to their mission statement. And we've discussed them in the past.
We have, yes.
Estate whiskeys must, 1, have all steps in the production process, including milling, cooking, fermentation, distillation, barreling, aging, and bottling, occur on the estate distillery, and 2, use at least 2/3 of all mash bill grains that are grown on estate-owned or controlled land. The 2 selected projects are Harmony, has a name that's hard to pronounce, Bettenhausen, PhD, exploring regional terroir in Kentucky-grown barley by single malt whiskey production, and Tracy Liu, PhD, and Min Young Lee, PhD, Consumer Perceptions of Certified Estate Whiskeys, Marketing Insights for Sustainable Branding. These projects span the full estate whiskey lifestyle, which is actually pretty cool. I mean, you got from the beginning to selling it.
They do, yes.
From analyzing terroir in Kentucky barley to investigating how certification influences consumer trust and purchasing behavior. Together, they reflect EWA's mission to blend tradition and innovation while strengthening ties between growers, distillers, and consumers.
So I wanted to find out more about who these people are and a little bit more about the studies that are being funded. And so, no surprise, all of the recipients work at UK in one role or another. Yeah, and so
we just walk across the street.
So Miss Bettenhausen is on the faculty at Beam Institute. What they're going to do, they're going to take 2 barley varieties. They're going to grow them in 3 different locations, and then I assume they're going to go through the same malting, distillation, so forth and so on processes to see if the different locations actually make a difference, right? It's about terroir. So
what was the distillery they were doing it with? I think I read it. I forgot it.
I don't think they identified the distilleries. Well, yeah, they did.
I thought they did. I just forgot.
It's Walnut Grove Farms, Maker's Mark, Star Hill, and then Riverbend Malt House. So those are the 3 companies involved in that one. So one assumes that Maker's is going to be doing the distillation and all of that. So the other 2 are a professor, actually a department chair, and a professor in the Department of Retailing and Tourism Management at UK. And they're going to get focus groups together and actually use eye tracking, which is sort of big brotherish, but to see, I guess, how to market and brand things. But they're doing this with 2 out-of-state distilleries, which I thought was odd. They're using Old 55, which is in Indiana, and Whiskey Acres in DeKalb, Illinois. And so I guess they picked those because they are a state, they're qualified with the Estate Whiskey Association. So anyway, they're going to be doing focus group studies and using eye tracking on shelves to see if that little estate whiskey certification, see if that draws people's eyes, see how that works as far as
I think
marketing.
it totally depends on what type of consumer you're looking at. I mean, But yeah, that would be pretty interesting. I mean, how many people even look at it, look at anything? I mean, where's the eye tracking happening?
Yeah,
Or they put
that's
it,
right.
I mean, this has to be in a
It's gotta
controlled
retail.
environment. I
Well,
mean,
but it's got to be in a retail environment, doesn't it? I mean, so
well,
are they getting permission from
remove
various
biases, it would
stores?
have to be.
Yeah, and so I think Ed just saved them a bunch of money by going, it just depends on the consumer. You don't need no thinking study, right?
Well, no, I mean, I think that would be very interesting. I guess we'll have to read how they do it because
Right.
you don't know what the eye tracking is looking at if there's just random bottles on a shelf.
Yeah.
So nobody could move something. It would have to be the same. But if you put a bottle directly in front of somebody and say, read the label, I guess it's still relevant because you'll know what they're going to look at. Maybe that's how they're doing it.
That would make sense.
It's the only
wouldn't
way
it?
you
Yes,
could do
that's
it.
the only way you could have. I don't think you're going to go out and install a bunch of eye trackers in retail locations.
No,
It's
and make sure
part of
nobody
the-
knows. The
right.
bottle have to be glued to the shelf.
part of the focus group would be, questions about, what do you see on the label, what do you like, what do you dislike, and then the eye tracking would be to see if they actually went to that certification symbol or whatever, and whether that even caught their eye.
Well, and then I'm sure they'd ask, did anything on the label influence your desire
right.
to purchase this
Right.
whiskey?
Yeah.
It doesn't work for people like me that the first thing they do is flip the bottle around to see where
Well,
it was.
unless it's on the back, and then
Yeah, true.
So, yeah. Anyway, too deep a dive for that one. But anyway, it's I'm glad they're funding stuff like that, right? Let's keep.
No, those are
focusing
both
on
very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see the results and to read these to see exactly how they did do the studies. Although the abstracts are probably available because it's a UK thing.
I don't know that I don't think these have been done, have they? I think
No, but they had
they're
to
funded.
submit their grant proposals. I wonder if that's public record because it's UK.
I bet it is. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't figure out how long it's going to be before we see results of these research grants and these studies. I don't know if they're already ongoing or if they're just getting started. And so, but I want to see the results.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're starting, you could do the second one pretty quickly. You're not doing the
years.
first one
No, the other one's going to be
anytime
years,
soon.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
I actually thought that same thing when I was reading it. It's like, well, that's going to be interesting. So we'll see the results in 6 years. But I don't know. I mean,
Bourbon has a long, and actually it's not bourbon, it's barley, it's single malts, I think is what they're
Yeah.
going to do with that. But even that has a long tail on it, folks. So
yeah, no, that's exactly what struck me when I read that one. I was like, it's very interesting, but it's going to, well, it's like Maker's Mark is growing all those oak trees that nobody that planted them is going to be alive when they're used for barrels.
That's right.
Which is crazy.
yeah, but they have barrel stock, so there you go.
Yeah. But that's the thing. If it's like, oh, this is fantastic, then you have to wait another 50 years. Right, moving on. So Gallup's 2025 Consumption Habits Survey of 1,005 U.S. adults conducted via telephone, July 7 to 21, found that only 54% reported drinking alcohol, the lowest level in nearly 90 years of tracking. The decline is sharpest among women, young adults, and Republicans. At the same time, a record 53% now believe moderate drinking is bad for health, with concern highest among young adults and women. Even among drinkers, frequency and volume are down, averaging just 2.8 drinks per week, the lowest since 1996. Beer remains the most popular beverage, but gender divides persist, with men preferring beer and women favoring wine. Additionally, the likelihood of drinking increases as household income increases, from just under 40% among households earning under $50,000 a year to about two-thirds amongst those earning $100,000 a year or more. Now, obviously, this could be a show in itself as well, so we will have to try to keep it to a...
I found the income spectrum an interesting side result of the study, and I want to reassure our viewers and listeners that Ed and I are doing everything we can to boost these averages, okay? Well, they didn't ask us, or it would be high already, right?
Well, so. I was wondering about that, though. I guess that is more reflective of the economy, I believe, than people's drinking habits.
I think that's certainly a factor, and I don't know how you... I don't think they probably adjusted or dealt with that as a factor in this survey. This was a survey of 1,005 people. I mean, I don't know enough about statistics to know if it's... I assume it's just, statistically valid because it's Gallup, right? They know what they're doing. That's a pretty small sample for a country of 350 plus million people.
Well, and I thought the exact same. So a lot of things about this. So, right, but I mean, once you start questioning one of the things, so now you have this big economic difference, and I mean, that's just falling into the exact same thing that the rising prices are affecting people with a lower income more than a higher income for obvious reasons. If you have a higher income,
Right.
you might not like it, but it's not going to stop you from doing stuff. Whereas if you have a lower income, it's going to outright have an effect on you.
Yes.
So. I mean, that's being pulled into this survey. So that's not necessarily reflecting your desire to buy alcoholic beverages.
Right.
It's
Right.
affecting what you can do. So, that's a bias. And then, yeah, as far as the numbers, I thought that number was very low too. But apparently 1,000 is sort of what is like the acceptable level for people to use for national surveys, even though our country is so... large, and that gives a 4% margin of error. It was 3 or 4% margin of error,
Right.
Which honestly I would have thought would have been higher, but then again, when you break it down into these much smaller groups, like looking at age is going to probably break it down into the smallest. Obviously, gender is just going to divide it in half.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
The smaller the group is, the more that margin of error increases. And the way you look at how many subjects you need in a study to get statistical significance, which is generally less than 0.05, you do what's called a power analysis. And if you do that, based on our country's size, it's actually still 1,660 people that you need. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's a huge difference if you compare it to 1,000.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, it is.
Because that's
It is.
a significant percentage more. So you've sort of got that there. But then any of the subgroup analysis, and then you throw in any other demographic and economic confounding factors, and the fact that they included people that were 18 years old.
Yeah, and again, we don't know what percentage of the group was between 18 and 21. And
Well, it's supposed to reflect the society's, the country's population demographics as a whole. So that's how they selected it. So.
And we all know there's 18-year-olds who drink, right? But it's harder for them to drink, and same for 19 and 20-year-olds because it's not legal for them to drink. So,
Which makes you wonder, do they admit that they drink?
right, exactly. So, I found a Yahoo News story came out Thursday or Friday. It was sort of a subset of this. It was focused on Gen Z drinking habits, right? People between, again, 18 and 24 years old. So there's part of that cohort.
Doesn't Gen Z go down to 14?
It may, but they only dealt with people that were 18
That's the
to
thing. When
24,
people talk about Gen Z, it's got a significant
Right.
percentage that is under drinking age.
Yeah. So it found an 8% drop in that generation over a course of 10 years, which is not as drastic as what Gallup is finding. But I thought it was interesting. They found that they're doing things like morning dance parties and DJs with coffee instead of with alcohol, and it's that's different things for Gen Z to do. What really shocked me about that article was the lowest consumption per capita in the United States is Utah. That's not a surprise.
No,
You know who was second lowest?
not Kentucky.
Kentucky.
What?
Yes. So I don't trust this study either now at this point.
We're in the Yahoo one?
41.6% of people in Kentucky drink. I can sort of see that based on, we used to have a bunch of dry counties. There's a strong religious bent in this state, but that just, I was shocked by that. I question that result.
Here for quite some time. I find that, but I don't know. I mean,
well, there's, you hang around like folks, right? So if we're drinking, we're not. Well, the 2.8
drinks per week seems a little, but not to. I guess we hang around with the wrong crowd, the unhealthy crowd. That
we hang around with the right crowd. It's just that we're not statistically
we're helping
relevant.
support an American agricultural industry.
We are. There's a lot of jobs that depend on us.
All right, moving on. The Kentucky Distillers Association, KDA, is bringing back its World Bourbon Toast on September 14, bigger than ever. Hosted by the Kentucky Bourbon Trail in partnership with Danny Wimmer Presents, this year's toast will stream live from the main stage of the Bourbon and Beyond Festival, uniting bourbon lovers and music fans worldwide for the largest bourbon toast in history. Fans can tune in via the Kentucky Bourbon Trail's Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube and share their own toast using hashtag World Bourbon Toast for a chance to be featured on their channels. Last year's debut spanned 32 countries and every time zone, and I have to look at a globe to see that. And 2025 promises to be even more expansive. It's interesting. And honestly, I did not know about this from last year, and all I thought about was the big toast that they just had in Lexington for the
That's right.
City's anniversary.
For the 250th anniversary of Lexington, we had a big bourbon toast.
Thought this was like a little bit of a slap in the face, but that's
Yeah, well, and you know, I don't think this is more. Lexington was more homegrown. You know, we're honoring the city's history. This is more about marketing for the Bourbon Trail and for Bourbon and Beyond. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think of this as more of a marketing endeavor, and it's an interesting counterpoint to the fact that Gallup reports we're drinking less. How do we square those things? Well, I don't know. So,
well, why don't we do a survey, completely unbiased, of course, at Bourbon and Beyond, and see how many people are not drinking.
And you know,
or why don't we do it at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival?
That would be an interesting way to gauge the quantity of drinking, right? Because obviously at those festivals and those events, people are drinking more than they normally do. And would they be honest about what they drink normally, or would they be, you know, would they tend to overestimate as opposed to people underestimating? You know, an 18-year-old is going to understate.
Well, I'd like to see the answer that the 18 to 20-year-olds give in a festival situation like that when they're almost certainly not drinking.
Yes. Yeah, almost certainly. So, you know, sign up for the Bourbon Toast, folks. You know, you can be part of a worldwide event. That'd be cool.
Yep. All right, and then we had this just in news story, and we're gonna put it in now. It won't be in the newsletter until after it happens, but we'll get it in the podcast before it does.
Because it's going to happen before the newsletter comes out.
It is, and it's actually pretty exciting for a brand that's fairly new and not particularly large. So Never Say Die Bourbon will sponsor the G2 Never Say Die Bourbon Ladies Turf Sprint at Kentucky Downs on Saturday, August 30th, with a purse of $2 million. Well, I don't know how this stuff works, but that seems like a lot of money for a small bourbon brand. But
I don't think they're not putting up the $2 million, but they're putting up something to be at the sponsor.
The race is part of the track's historic $10 million prize day. It's a big day, and will air live on NBC from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This date also marks the airing of the brand's first ever national TV commercial, and I can't think of a small brand that's ever done a national TV commercial.
Yeah.
But I don't watch that much TV, so
no.
A major milestone for a relatively small whiskey producer. 2 30-second spots will run during the broadcast, telling the story of the Kentucky-born Colt Never Say Die, famously revived with bourbon before his shocking 1954 Epsom Derby win. And you can read more of the history on their website, but the Beatles get tied into this and stuff. It's a very interesting story.
This is great publicity for Never Say Die. I mean, it's you know, like you say, I don't know any other national television ads. You know, for they're not even really a distillery, right? So for a brand this small, so I'm looking forward to it. Hope it works well for them. You know, well,
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, we do know Brian Luftman, who's one of the co-founders, but Pat and Shane from Wilderness Trail also were co-founders of it as well. So I don't know.
Well, and there's a gentleman named Patrick Madden who's also a founder/investor, and so there's money there. But it's a great story, you know, about the horse Never Say Die, and the actual ad has some footage. I don't know if it's actual footage of that Epsom Derby, but it's, you know, black and white footage with Winston Churchill and the Queen of England. And,
I hadn't looked at it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat how they put it together. So,
no, very very cool. And I mean, it's been a little while since I've had their whiskeys, but they're both very good. And I'm told they're getting older now, and so probably different than when I last tasted them as well. Still waiting for their barrel proof release because it's been out in England, I think, since very shortly after its launch. Yeah, the barrel proof bourbon, but it hadn't come here.
You know, I have to go look and see what I've got. I might have a barrel proof, but it was only available like at Bourbon on the Banks last year.
I heard something about that once, or something like that.
Yeah.
But
I'll go see if I can secure that up, Ed. Maybe I'll bring it for the next one.
I don't know. You always seem to forget your whiskeys.
They say that drinking causes a loss of memory, but I don't know.
Well, stick to less than 2.6 per week. You'll be
all
fine.
Right. Yeah. Good luck with that.
All right, and we've got a few new releases, and the only reason we're including these new releases, well, they were more relevant for the newsletter because they both had expiration dates on things that were happening with them that were going to happen after the newsletter came out, but unfortunately it's before the podcast comes out. So we'll just run through them now. Four Roses Distillery will launch its 2025 limited edition small batch bourbon on September 3rd, the 18th edition of the annual release. Bottled at 109 proof, the non-chill filtered bourbon blends 13 and 19-year-old recipes from Four Roses' 10 distinct recipes, carefully selected by master distiller Brent Elliott. Approximately 16,854 bottles, give or take, will be released nationwide at a suggested retail price of $249. Bottles will be available through select retailers and via an online lottery, and this is what was in my newsletter, which accepts entries from August 19 to August 24, so it's going to be, unfortunately, over when the podcast airs, so subscribe to the newsletter, with winners announced on August 29 for purchase and pickup in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky.
And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I love their annual, limited releases. It'll be interesting to see because of the softening, if you will, of the bourbon market, if it's going to be any easier to find these at retail. It's one thing to try and get in the lottery and go out to the distillery and pick one up, but it's one of those unicorns, finding it out, in the actual real world at a liquor store, your neighborhood liquor store is always a great find. So maybe I'll visit a couple in the next few weeks, see if I can, stumble upon one.
Well, the one thing that causes a little chaos about this press release, though, is that it says it's being released on September 3rd, but it does not specifically say it's not being released at the distillery, where back in the day, well, last year actually, they released it at the distillery on the Saturday of Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And in the past, prior to COVID, they always released it at the distillery, and then they went to these lotteries after that. So I think we're being led to believe it's not going to be available at the distillery, but it does not specifically say that.
It doesn't say that, but yes, the way I heard that was if you are chosen in the lottery, you can pick it up at the distillery, but if you're going to try and go to the distillery and get it, you're not going to have any luck.
That's what I think is being implied, but it does not specifically say on here, don't line up at the distillery or the bottling facility.
Which we'll find out on September 3rd to see how long the line is, right? We won't, because we'll be at the Bourbon Festival. But
well, that's the Wednesday, but we'll be helping set up for it.
Yeah.
Well, I will. Well, I don't know. What are you?
No. I'll probably be stuck behind my desk at work, I'm afraid. So, but if I'm not, I'll go by Four Roses and see if there's a line. So.
All right, and then our last new release also just happened, but this one I may or may not be ongoing. The James B. Beam Distilling Company is honoring its 230th anniversary with the launch of the limited edition Beam's Pin Bottle, which debuted exclusively at the Claremont Distillery on Saturday, August 23rd, which was Jim Beam Day. It's inspired by more than 3,000 different decanters produced from the 1940s to the 1990s by Beam. This recreation pays tribute to Jim Beam's personal favorite decanter. The Beam's Pin Bottle, which looks like a bowling pin, which I guess you may not deduce from me reading this, is crafted from liquid aged in the brand's historic 9-story warehouses, aged 8 years and bottled at 86.8 proof. And what's very interesting is it didn't say this in the press release, but when I was there on Thursday, I learned that the warehouse that it was aged in is the one that's in front of the visitor center and by the kitchen table that was recently torn down.
Oh, wow.
So that makes this sort of cool. It's like a little bit equivalent to the Russell's single warehouse when they did that release of what warehouse was it B that was torn down.
So yeah, that's neat. So I mean, and it's a neat shaped bottle. I like the way it looks, and
it's very cool.
It's not special bourbon necessarily, but you know, it was it. Well, you just read that. Is it older?
Well, it's 8 years. So I mean,
8 years.
it's
So
certainly
yeah,
older
okay.
than
Yeah.
white label or black,
right.
and it's 86.8 proof, so it's still fairly low. But things were lower back in the day.
Yeah.
And I didn't say it's MSRP. It's around $100, but it is a very cool bottle.
We're going to go back to decanters, folks, because eventually there's so
Wow.
much bourbon out there. We're going to have to revert to
History
decanters,
repeats
right?
itself.
Exactly, and this is certainly not a dig on Beam. I mean, I think this is a really cool tradition. It sort of is a part of their tradition, right? They've been doing this for a long time, 230 years. It's a neat sort of. It's not just a memento, but it's part of history. So.
But there's, again, other things we don't know. Like, we don't know if this is going to be an ongoing distillery-only release, if this was like a one-shot deal. I mean, rumor has it it's going to be sold at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. But, nothing was specified here. So I don't know. I mean, people were, asking a lot for it on the secondary, which might be fine if it was a one-shot. Well, it's never really fine. But, it might be more reasonable. I would just caution people for paying for a premium for this bourbon when for all we know, it could be available for
right?
quite some time. I don't know. I mean, I suppose the bottle itself is a limiting factor because how many of those could you make? I mean, they're really pretty.
Well, but you got to also assume that Beam has a lot of 8-year-old bourbon that they could produce at 86.8 proof, right?
No, I would think it's the bottle that would be
exactly. So,
because the bottles can't be cheap. I mean, that's got to be part of those costs. But all right, and then what else? So Kentucky Bourbon Festival is finally rolling around.
It's coming around.
I say finally, but it seems like it's really quickly now. All of a sudden,
2 weeks.
So, yeah. So the week after this will be Kentucky Bourbon Festival. There's still some spots in the premium events. I mean, some of them are sold out, but some still have tickets available. So if you're going and you want to attend any of those, check out your Tixer account, and you can buy more tickets there. That's about it. So
I'm exhausted. I'm done.
I know. Well, Uncle Nearest did that.
Yes. It's like
Actually, we had a lot of long stories on here. Well, that about does it for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon and Distillery News Podcast, your commercial-free and therefore money-free bourbon podcast. Please be sure to join us next Monday for our new Bourbon Releases News podcast. And we're getting to the time of year where there's already a whole bunch. So that is going to be another, unfortunately, fairly lengthy podcast. We'll try to do it as quickly as possible.
This will be good. If you're doing workouts while you listen to this, you'll get to put in a longer workout next week, folks.
Yeah. Also, be sure to like and follow us at your preferred podcast provider so that you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to tell all your friends, too. You can also head over to bourbonobsessed.com to check out some of our over 350 bourbon reviews and over 50 distillery write-ups. While you are there, you can also sign up to have my newsletters delivered directly to your inbox. Finally, I can be found on Instagram at bourbon_obsessed and on Facebook at Bourbon Obsessed, and would love for you to follow me there as well. Dean, where can they find you?
People find me on Instagram at Dean of Bourbon with underscores, and look forward to seeing any comments you have on any of my posts.
All right, folks, we will see you. Cheers. Have a good week.